Welcome to the Better Pairs podcast. Join Dr. Jason Fujikawa for his insights on theology, philosophy, culture, and the verbal expressions we use to relate meaning and reality to one another. Make no mistake, this is a podcast for nerds, but particular nerds who are searching for old wisdom made ever new. To learn more about the Better Pairs cultural empire, please visit betterpairs.com. Hello, this is Dr. Jason Fujikawa. This episode of the Better Pairs podcast features a dedication to my paternal grandfather and the lesson of his life and legacy. The episode itself is something of a 2-for-1, where the initial historical development only sets the stage for a more contemporary discussion of morality and our desire for authentic life. As always, Better Pairs Preserves, linked in the show notes, hosts all our episode scripts in blog form. Season 2 is currently in the writing phase. The community-supported analysis page on the website will list the Season 2 episode titles once they are announced. Finally, we will have additional Better Pairs merchandise and listener opportunities coming this fall. Sign up for our emails at betterpairs.com to be the first to know. Now, on with the episode. Dedication. My grandfather, Tomotsu Fujikawa, known to the Anglophonic world as George Fujikawa, was born 119 years ago in California. A U.S. citizen by birth, his parents returned with him to Japan to commence his formal elementary schooling. At the age of 16, Tomotsu returned to California without his parents through a legal adoption by another Japanese-American family. It was at this point that his last name took its signature G, replacing the often anticipated J, derived quite literally from the iconic Lonely Mountain of Japan and the birthplace of the world's greatest variety of apple. I was 4 years old when he passed from this life in 1985, and so the two events in his life bearing particular influence upon my own are viewed through the accounts of others and the artifacts of history. The years following December 7th, 1941, were objectively the worst of his life as a husband and father, being required without due process to relinquish all his worldly possessions save what would fit into a large luggage chest and leave the land of his birth to be interned indefinitely at a government camp in Arkansas. My own father would not be born in the camp, as George had, by the time of my father's arrival, secured a sponsorship from a family in southwest Ohio, who took on the Fujikawas as tenant farmers as long as the government required after the war. Eventually, George moved his growing family to Cincinnati and opened F&F Fruit Market with one of my great-uncles. Unlike Better Pairs, this earlier family enterprise actually sold fruit, and furthermore was successful enough to provide a modest and secure retirement for him and my grandmother. In the meantime, however, there was this issue of schooling his children, including my father. The Catholic elementary school at the time where my father and siblings were attending, in an effort to prioritize who from their community could attend the limited seats in each class, required that all students be Catholic or become Catholic. You see, until this time, the Fujikawas were Buddhists, and yet there and then George decided that the 4 youngest of his children, still in elementary school, would become Catholic. Such a policy for a school today would horrify us, and yet without this historical circumstance, I would likely not exist, and you would be listening to one of those safe podcasts that you can listen to whilst jogging or driving or doing your taxes. You see, it was quite uncommon for a young Irish-German Catholic woman to take her Japanese-American suitor to meet her parents in the 1960s. I was told as a child that my maternal grandfather did not take to my father immediately, that he eventually warmed up to him. I believe that this was due in large part to their common Catholic faith, the faith that my paternal grandfather George decisively chose for his children a decade earlier. Thus, when I met him as a young boy, George Fujikawa could have easily shared the epithet Paluthropos with Laertes' son. Broken as a casualty of war, having learned new customs and beliefs in distant lands, it would have been easy for George to become bitter, resentful of all the wrongs brought against him and his house. But that was not his way. That is not the legacy of the Fujikawas that he left behind. Some might ascribe this to a residual Buddhist indifference, but others might see in his life and legacy a lesson in forgiveness that, while recognizing injuries and wrongs, has grown larger than them in spirit and love. Episode 12. 2 Yotas of a Difference. The phrase, "it does not make 1 iota of a difference," should be classified with similar phrases, such as, "I am not my brother's keeper," and "to thy own self be true," in that it bears something of a biblical or Shakespearean pedigree, while it excels in being on the wrong side of history and truth. This reference about iotas has, you see, a specific historical context. Side note, the reference to the 9th letter of the Greek alphabet is pronounced iota, not iota. Unlike O, which receives both micron and mega distinctions, the iota in iota is pronounced once and as a short vowel. At this time, it might be good to admonish those who pronounce the Latinized form of the Spanish Javier as X-Zavier to repent of their phonetic crimes and the scandal they have caused impressionable children. Returning to iota, the historical context is the Arian and semi-Arian controversy of the 4th century. The dispute has been popularized by Catholic meme culture for recent celebrations of St. Nicholas's feast day each December 6th, based on some accounts that St. Nicholas physically struck an Arian at the Council of Nicaea. The theological matter contended at the council was the nature or essence of the Son relative to the Father. The Orthodox opinion was championed by a young deacon from Alexandria, Athanasius. The alternative position was held by Arius of Antioch, previously a deacon of Alexandria, but who was prevented from priestly ordination by then Bishop Alexander of Alexandria. Putting whatever rivalry that existed between Athanasius and Arius aside, Athanasius puts forward the term homoousios, a singularly non-biblical term, within the proposed creed or symbol of the faith. The term expresses the consubstantial nature of the Son to the Father. Arius's proposed term was homoiousios. The additional I, or iota in Greek, has the effect of softening the meaning of sameness expressed in the prefix homo, and thus means consubstantial like, or of a similar substance. The whole matter was complicated by those either calling themselves or otherwise becoming known as the semi-Arians, who kept the additional iota but seemed to diminish its doctrinal import. Hence, it does not make 1 iota of a difference. In terms of the reality signified, it is not clear that there is a distinction between the Arians and the semi-Arians. Either Jesus Christ, the Son of God, is the same divine nature as the Father, or he is a creature, regardless of whether he is put into a polytheistic or Platonic schema subsequently. In terms of distinguishing Arians, it does not make 1 semi of a difference. This is all a preparatory excursus, however, and sets the scene for a vicious assault on life and good living. Life, in Latin, is expressed by the word vita. Vitium, and its neuter plural form vitia, signify sin, fault, or vice. The graphical difference between life and vices, vita and vitia respectively, is again a solitary I. Is this similarity a philological coincidence, or did our linguistic ancestors have an insight into sin and vice that could aid our present understanding and actions. Vices, vitia, are likened to life, but ultimately are deficient. Life, here, is understood in its fullest metaphysical sense. The way to be fully alive is to cling to, or, more dramatically, cleave to the source of life, God, revealed most perfectly through the Son, Jesus Christ. Vices give the allure of this singular life-giving force, but fail to deliver. Hence the plurality of vitia. While one life is enough for us, one vice cannot satisfy. Indeed, it often happens that one vice is either an entryway to others, or that a higher vice, such as pride, can remove, for a time, the grip of lust, gluttony, or sloth. Vices offer a siren song that claims to meet the need of our inquiet heart. Confer Heartcore, Episode 11. It should be noted that the mythical sirens of Homer's Odyssey do indeed promise true goods to Odysseus. The fatal, though technically here ineffable, catch is that the sirens cannot and will not fulfill their promises. Similarly, vices cannot and will not fulfill their promise of full, authentic life, which only the author of life can give. It would be more helpful to consider vices as certain rebellious viceroys. They are speaking the words of the king, the roi, without his force, without his love for his subjects. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. John 10:10. I believe that our ancestors knew this connection between the false life that vitia offered. However, through the historical adoption in English of the Germanic leaf over the Romantic vita, and the medieval Spanish softening of the T in vitium to the C in vice, this connection has been largely lost. The purpose of this podcast and the work of Better Pairs as a whole is to offer these fruitful bites and insights into the wisdom of our betters. On behalf of the Better Pairs cultural empire, I hope you have enjoyed this inaugural season. I invite you to subscribe to the podcast so that you can be among the first to enjoy Season 2. The views expressed by Better Pairs contributors are theirs alone and do not necessarily reflect the views of Better Pairs, its parent company, or any company or organizations affiliated with the contributors. For more information to support Better Pairs or to shop for Better Pairs merchandise, please visit betterpairs.com.